Hello, everybody.
Howdy.
Oh, my goodness. Apparently, since we left off on the mark of the beast 666 at the past history of when they thought all the 144,000 were the ones marking, and we didn't bring it up to modern day. So thank you, Orlando, for reminding us that we should have brought it up to modern day. So here's part 2, a sequel to that one, bringing it up to the modern day and showing all of their flip-flops.
And don't be surprised if it's the same old thing. Bringing it up to modern day or not, it's the same old thing. The thing is the way they've worded it, it might be a little difficult to recognize it's the same old thing.
Yeah. Now I have the 2016 bond volume here. Yeah, see, it's only about an inch thick. It's all the Watchtower and all the Awakes for 2016 all together in one book. That's how thin they got. So we're going to go to the June Study Watchtower. Page 16, the questions from readers. Whom do the man with the secretary's inkhorn and the 6 men with the smashing weapons described in Ezekiel's vision symbolize? Oh boy. So this brings it up to the modern time. And I'm going to go over to page 17 and read point number 3 and 4. In Ezekiel's day, no one received a literal mark on his forehead. The same is true today. What do people need to do to be symbolically marked for survival? They need to react favorably to the preaching work that is taking place, put on the Christian personality, dedicate themselves to Jehovah, and loyally support Christ's brothers. Those who do these things will receive the mark of survival during the coming Great Tribulation.
So if you all recall, in the past it was all 144,000 that were going to be symbolically, putting that mark in your forehead for survival. But in all reality, nothing has changed. Because who do the 144,000 associate with? Jehovah's organization. Because see, you can't be one of the 144,000 unless you are with Jehovah's organization. Now we all know that the Watchtower Society has now made that little group of 8 governing men the faithful and discreet slaves. So you 144,000 that are not part of the governing body, you are no longer considered the faithful and discreet slave. Okay, you're just kicked back to the same as the rank and file. But listen to what they say. I mean, it's unless you paid attention to the wording, you're not going to recognize that it's the same old thing. This is what they're saying. They need to act favorably to the preaching work. So in other words, knock, 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 good morning, my name is Mike. Would you like to hear the good news of the king? No, get the hell out of here. You're going to die. Because you're not acting favorably to the preaching work. Okay? Then it says, put on the Christian personality. Well, now there's a huge debate as to what Jehovah's Witnesses' Christian personality is. Dedicate themselves to Jehovah. Oh, you mean the organization, because Jehovah and the organization are synonymous to each other. And then said, and loyally support Christ's brothers, which is the governing body. So if you don't support the governing body loyally, you're going to die. It's the same old thing. Doesn't matter whether they put a mark in your forehead symbolically or literally. Doesn't matter whether Jesus does it. It doesn't matter whether the whole entire multitude of the 144,000 does it. Or it doesn't even matter if the governing 8 idiots in Warwick do it. The point being is that unless you become a Jehovah's Witness and unless you acknowledge the faithful and discreet slave man, unless you loyally support them, you will die. It's as simple as that. It's the same old thing that Watchtower has preached from day one. Nothing has changed. It doesn't matter if it's the 8 that now become the faithful and discreet slave, or in the past, it doesn't matter if the whole multitude of the 144,000 was considered the faithful and discreet slave. Throw all that aside. Unless you become a Jehovah's Witness, you will die at Armageddon. It's the same old thing.
Okay, so for those of us who remember the July 2013 study edition of the Watchtower, there was an article in there, Who Really is the Faithful and Discreet Slave? Now this was a gem because this is when they basically, well, I'll just read it. Paragraph 9. Do all anointed ones on earth make up the faithful slave? No.
No.
The reality is that not all anointed ones have a role in dispensing spiritual food to fellow believers worldwide. So, when we did our video about the mark of the beast, back then it was all the 144,000 who were part of this work, basically separating people into sheep and goats.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Now, paragraph 10, it says, who then is the faithful and discreet slave? Wasn't a big surprise. In keeping with Jesus' pattern of feeding many through the hands of a few, that slave is made up of a small group of anointed brothers who are directly involved in preparing and dispensing spiritual food during Christ's presence. You got it.
So now that Christ's presence is now an overlapping presence. Think about it, Jehovah's Witnesses.
Because remember, they used to believe it was all the 144,000. Well, first they believed it was C.T. Russell, Pastor Russell, according to, Fred France. Then it became the 144,000 at his death. You want to talk about flip-flops. This is definitely one of those to get everybody confused. But this is good. It was good to bring it up to modern times. Because in recent decades, that slave has been closely identified with the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses. So, it kind of ties in because they didn't really change much because it is still part of the remnant, but instead of being all the 144,000, now it's just the few. The faithful and discreet slave with Jesus Christ. Because I'm going to read number 4 here.
The slave has been closely identified with the governing. Look at the way they worded that. Closely identified? That should be an absolute identification, Watchtower.
Clear as mud?
Oh, it always was with these boneheads.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. That slave has always been closely identified with the governing. It should be absolutely identified with the governing body.
So it makes you wonder if there's a question mark about that.
Well, it makes you wonder if they're not closely including the Pennsylvania Board of Directors in that board of governing body members.
Yeah. So back to the 2016 article, page 17, number 4. In the modern day fulfillment, the man with the secretary's inkhorn represents Jesus Christ. Well, that's who it should have been all along. Forget all of these mediators, the 144,000 and C.T. Russell and then the governing body. Get rid of all of them.
But do you see they're doing the same thing? Paragraph 3 says you got to become a Jehovah, and paragraph 4 says that Jesus is the one that's marking. Shouldn't it be paragraph 3 talking about Jesus? Because remember, when it comes to Watchtower theology, it's Jehovah, the governing body, and then Jesus. And they're doing the same thing here. See, it's the same old thing, but they've just worded it a little more confusing for the ignorant ones. Because see, now it's Jehovah. You have to come to the organization that's controlled and run by the governing body, and then it's Jesus. It's the same old thing. It's nothing new.
So going on with paragraph 4, point 4 here, I said it was Jesus Christ, the one behind the scenes who marks those who will survive. The great crowd will receive their mark when they are judged as sheep during the Great Tribulation. So like I said, this is a whole separating of the sheep and the goats thing.
But once again, if you're not associated with Jehovah's organization and loyally support Christ's brothers, you are not going to be judged as a sheep. You will be judged as a goat.
This will put them in line to receive everlasting life here on earth. And there's an asterisk. This is interesting. The asterisk footnote says, faithful anointed ones do not need to receive this mark for survival. Instead, they will receive their final sealing either before they die or before the outbreak of the Great Tribulation.
So it's once saved, always saved then, right?
Apparently, they will receive their mark
Wow.
before or when they die or before the outbreak of the Great Tribulation.
Well, there again, it's nothing new. All they've done is worded it a little bit differently. And for you that profess to be of the 144,000 and you are not on the governing body, you do not have that same anointing, whether you want to believe it or not. You do not have that same anointing as your governing body. Because if you think you do, I would challenge you to march to Warwick, get through that little guard shack, and upset the apple cart. It's not going to happen because this is a business. It's not a religion where all of you are brothers of Christ. It's a business.
Now, for those of you who have not read this article on jw.org right here, the July 15th, 2013 study Watchtower is on there. And I would recommend reading this article, Who is the Faithful Slave? Because paragraph 11, who are the domestics? You guys are going to love this one. It is noteworthy that in Jesus' illustration, the faithful and discreet slave receives two distinct appointments.
Overlapping appointments.
The first is over the domestics. The second is over all the master's belongings. Since the illustration is fulfilled only in this time of the end, both appointments would have to come after Jesus' presence in kingly power began in 1914. Oy vey, clear as mud.
Which is now overlapping presence, like the overlapping generation. These guys have run out of time. That's why they're selling the Kingdom Hall. That's why people are leaving. They're on the internet watching videos such as this, being able to have people like ourselves point out and say, look, it's the same old thing. Nothing has changed. Either you come to Jehovah's organization or you will die. There is no ifs, ands, or buts with these people. It doesn't matter to these people whether the scriptures say, where they quote Jesus, if you believe in me, you'll be saved. If you receive me into your heart. What they're saying is that unless you receive Jehovah's organization and the faithful and discreet slave, the governing knuckleheads, in your hearts, you're going to die at Armageddon. So whether you want to look at it this way or not, those 8 men are still putting that mark symbolically either in your forehead or in your hand. Because unless you come to the organization, unless you give obeisance to this governing body, you will die. That's always been their take on this.
Yeah, exactly.
Always.
So it boils down to the one at this moment in Watchtower Believes, September 1st, 2020, is that Jesus is the one with the writer's inkhorn. Now, in my personal opinion, that's what it should have been all along. It wasn't Pastor Russell. It wasn't the 144,000. It's not the governing body. It's Jesus Christ. Because he's the only one, according to the scriptures, that have the authority to do so. The governing body always wants to put themselves up there, right next to Christ, helping Christ. They're even going to help him destroy everybody at Armageddon. So,
But it's just like any other Christian-based religion on this planet. You have men in those religions that assume this authority. They can't prove one way or another whether that authority comes from Christ or not. They can't prove it.
yeah, exactly. So thank you everybody for watching. We just wanted to do a quick sequel to this. Thank you, Orlando. You're absolutely right. We needed to bring it up to modern times since it has changed again. And I want to thank everybody who has sent me the pirate article. Yes, we have found it. And so hopefully we can do a video pretty soon about that. So you all have a wonderful evening.
Bye.
Bye.